would like to talk about enharmonic modulation. In enharmonic modulation, we take a chord and spell it enharmonically, or reinterpret one or more of the notes enharmonically and resolve it to a chord in a different key. So we use a chord, spell it enharmonically, and resolve it like the reinterpreted and harmonically reinterpreted chord. There are two chords that are very suitable for enharmonic modulation. One is the German augmented sixth chord, A flat C, E flat F sharp in the key of C. Now, if we were to resolve it in the key of C, it will go to the dominant, or usually to 1-6-4, cadential 6-4 chord, then 5 or 5-7, and resolve to 1. So there is a resolution outward to cadential 6-4 chord, then 5-7, and then resolve to 1. But the interesting thing about the German augmented sixth chord is that it really sounds like a major minor seventh chord, because we can think of the F sharp as a G flat. So in the key of C, this chord, the German augmented sixth chord, goes to cadential 6-4 chord, 5-7, 1. But let's say the composer starts the piece and leads up to German augmented sixth chord, but then decides, well, I may actually reinterpret that F sharp as a G flat, and then the composer can spell it either way, either with an F sharp or a G flat, but resolves it in the way as if it's a G flat. That would make it a dominant seventh chord, an A flat dominant seventh chord, and then resolve it like a dominant seventh chord. So in this case, so there's C, there's some kind of progression going on. Then in the old key, it would be a German augmented sixth chord, but in the new key, it is a 5-7 chord, and then it resolves to 1. Of course, if it's an A flat 7, then the tonic would be a perfect fifth below that, so we would be in the key of D flat, either D flat major or D flat minor, or in fact, enharmonically, C sharp major or C sharp minor. Of course, D flat minor doesn't make too much sense, but it could only exist as a theoretical key, but we have three real keys, D flat major, C sharp major, or D flat minor, that this chord can resolve to. So if it's, let's say, D flat major, if I write this a little lower, then now this is without voice leading. Of course, we would have to have voice leading considerations for this, but let's say we start this piece in C and then resolve, and then maybe have a second resolution in the same key, because whenever we modulate, the composer may want to have two resolutions to the new tonic so that we actually hear it. So I will start in C with a progression 1, 6, 4, 2, German augmented sixth chord, and resolve to D flat. And one more time. And I modulate it. So I use the German augmented sixth chord as part of an enharmonic modulation. We can of course do the reversed thing, we can start in the key of if we start in the key of C, we go to eventually to a dominant, which could be the regular dominant or could even be a secondary dominant, such as a 5/7 of 4. 5/7 of 4. But instead of resolving it to 4, to F, we resolve it in a new key, like a German augmented 6 chord. Now, the lowest note of a German augmented 6 chord is usually the flat 6 scale degree. So the question is, in which key is C a flat 6 scale degree? Of course, that would be in the key of either E major or E minor, right? And then, so really then the B flat is more like an A sharp, right? Enharmonically reinterpreted. So as an A sharp, so I'll swap this out. Composers often actually spell the chords as if they're in the new key, so that musicians can already see in which key it goes. Of course, A sharp goes to B, the C goes down to B, and if we go to a cadential 6/4 chord, then we have E, G sharp, B. We could do this in E minor as well with E natural, and then we go to B, D sharp, F sharp, A 5/7, and then resolve to 1, which is an E chord. So in this case, I play the progression such as, or I can play a progression 1, so in C, I start in C, 1, 6, 4, 2, 5, 1, and then I make a C7 out of it. But then I don't resolve it to F, like this is a 5/7 of 4, but I don't resolve it to 4, I resolve it to a cadential 6/4 chord. And then I don't actually need a second resolution because I have a cadential 6/4 chord, which makes the resolution much stronger. So we usually only need one resolution if we use a cadential 6/4 chord to resolve, and with the German chord we usually do that to avoid parallel fifths anyways. So we can do it either way, a 5/7 in one key to a German chord in the other, or the other way around. Now there is a second type of chord that suits itself very nicely for enharmonic reinterpretation, and that chord is the fully diminished 7th chord. So let's say in the key of C, this is 7 diminished 7, and resolves to. Now you may argue, okay, in major key we usually have a half diminished 7th chord. That is true, but we may also have a fully diminished 7th chord. That means with an extra accidental, the composer may use a fully diminished 7th chord. So enharmonic modulation really doesn't work with a half diminished 7th chord. You will see in a minute why. It works with a fully diminished 7th chord, but we could also think of C minor, but it works in both keys, C major and C minor. So now if we spell this B7, and we think of B as the leading tone, and we resolve it to C, either C major or C minor, right? But in fact, orally, we don't really know where the root of the chord is, because a fully diminished 7th chord splits the octaves in equal parts, in minor thirds, and if I would continue stacking up thirds, then I would get to C flat, which of course is enharmonically B, and so on. So then the same notes repeat, the same keys on the keyboard, on the piano, repeat in higher octaves. So we actually split the octave in equal minor thirds, so we actually cannot hear where the root is. That means the root could be any of the other notes. It could be the D. And if D is the root of a fully diminished seventh chord, that means a leading tone chord, then the D would resolve to E flat. Or if the F is the root of the chord, just from the sound, if we enharmonically respell this chord, so F is the root of the chord, that means the root of a leading tone chord, then it leads to G flat. Or if the A flat is the root of the chord, or enharmonically G sharp, then it leads to A or minor. Right? So any of these notes could be into whichever key we want to modulate, could be the root of the chord. So we just have to, it just would be with a different inversion. So in this last example, where it's really G sharp, enharmonically G sharp, then we would go to the key of A, let's say A minor, and then if the G sharp or A flat is the root of the chord, then B is the third of the chord, which makes it 6/5 inversion, and then resolve to 1, which is an A chord, right? So really we can modulate to several different keys. So we can resolve this chord as it is to C major or C minor. We can resolve the chord if D is the root of the chord, that means the leading tone. We can resolve it to E flat major or E flat minor. If F is the leading tone, that means the root of the chord, we can resolve this chord to G flat major, or to F sharp major, or to F sharp minor. And if this note, the A flat, enharmonically G sharp, is the root of the chord, which means the leading tone, we can resolve it to A major or A minor. So to C or C minor, or to E flat or E flat minor, or this being the leading tone to G flat or G flat minor, or F sharp minor in this case. And if this is the leading tone G sharp or A flat, it resolves to A major or A minor. Right? So we can use the property of this chord, which is that it divides the octave evenly, so that we can't really hear what the root of the chord is. We can use that property to modulate to various keys.